Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. To mark 50 years since the passing of Pier Paolo Pasolini, Casa Italiana Zrilli Marimò presents a series, Pasolini, Politics and Poetry, running until November 13th. Curated by Professor Ara, Merjian, and myself, this series focuses on events such as screenings, exhibitions, and poetry and stage reading. Where artists and scholars continue to be inspired or challenged by Pasolini. As we know, Pasolini was a poet and a filmmaker and one of Italy's most powerful voices of our time. With this series, we don't just want to honor his legacy, but we invite you to look at his idea on politics, art, and society with fresh eyes. Tonight, I'm very happy to present a Marxist in New York, thanks to Laura Caparrotti, who brought this idea. So, round of applause for Laura. In collaboration with KIT, Kairos Italy Theater, and this stage is conceived by and directed by Marco Calvani, a very famous actor, and is based on Pasolini conversation with journalist Oriana Fallaci. I'm gonna leave you the floor to Laura, who is going to provide an overview about what is gonna happen tonight. And thank you again, and enjoy tonight.
So, thank you to Mila Tenaglia, who is part of this series. Just very briefly, you are taking this time to turn off your cellular phone or silence your cellular phone, because once upon a time there was no service in this room. Now there is, so we don't want that. So this reading, this stage reading, many years ago, for one of the anniversaries, I think was 10 years ago, something like that, I asked my friend Marco Calvani to come up with an idea, and he decided to celebrate Pasolini in New York and his encounter, his friendship with Oriana Fallaci. 10 years later, we are here, and as some of you tagged me for Thursday night when we did a Turk-style Friul, which was a gem that you could have seen only here because it's in the archive of the Teatro dell'Elfo. Today, you are very lucky because Marco is right now shooting the second season of The Four Seasons, which is on Netflix. And so he took the time to, instead of relaxing, to relax with us. And so is in between shooting, and he came and he worked on that. So this reading started years ago, but every time we come back to it, he's working on it again, he's reviewing it, and you'll see what happens. Cellular, okay? Fine? Okay, so after the show, there's no Q&A, but you can meet the actors afterwards upstairs, where you can see the exhibition. Also on your program, you have, on the 4th page, you have the calendar for the remaining events. If you want to come, there are very beautiful events, especially Tuesday, where you have another gem. You have the Gospel according to St. Matthew that is in color, is a restored version in color. So come again, and thank you again, and enjoy the reading.
Small, fragile, consumed by thousands of desires, thousands of desperations, disappointments, and dressed like a college kid. You know the type. Skinny, sporty, the kind that plays basketball and makes love in their cars. Wearing a brown sweater with a leather breast pocket, snug brown corduroys and desert boots. He truly didn't show its 44 years. You couldn't tell its age until he got to the window where the light shines ruthlessly on his face and slaps his bright, sad eyes, hollowed, wrinkled cheeks, and skin so tight that you could see his skull. From tiredness, I suppose. At night, he turned down invitations and went by himself to the darkest streets of Harlem, Greenwich Village, Brooklyn, or the waterfront, in bars where not even the police dared to enter, looking for the soiled, unhappy, violent America that suited its own problems and tastes. By the time he was back at his Manhattan hotel, it was dawn, with eyelids heavy, his body aching from the surprise of being alive. Many of us worried that if he didn't stop, we were going to find him with a bullet through his heart, or his throat cut. He'd been in the city for 10 days. He came for the New York Film Festival, which was showing 2 of his movies, Ox and Sparrows and The Gospel According to St. Matthew. I was very curious to know if America was to the liking of that convinced Marxist, that angry Christian, that, in short, Pasolini. This is why I asked him to come by for a drink. Whiskey? Beer? Cognac?
Coca-Cola?
Have a seat.
Thanks.
Allora, how's it going?
Honestly, I wish I was still young and I could live here my whole life.
Here, in New York.
Yes, it's magic. It's overwhelming, beautiful. A lucky city full of grace. Like a poet who writes a beautiful poem every time he picks up a pen. I'm sorry that I didn't come here earlier. New York is not an escape. It's a commitment, a war. It fills you with a desire to do, to deal with, to change things. You like it the same way you liked things when you were 20.
America is a femme fatale, seducing anyone who comes by. I still haven't met a communist who hasn't gone nuts as soon as he got off the boat. Yes or no?
Yes. The thing is that I'm not 20 anymore. And there is only room for one woman in my life now.
Not the woman. È difficile dire con parole di figlio ciò cui nel cuore ben poco assomiglio. Tu sei la sola al mondo che sa del mio cuore ciò che è stato sempre prima di ogni altro amore. Per questo devo dirti ciò che orrendo conoscere. È dentro la tua grazia che nasce la mia angoscia. Sei insostituibile. Per questo è dannata la solitudine la vita che mi hai data. E non voglio essere solo. Ho un'infinita fame d'amore, dell'amore di corpi senza anima, perché l'anima è in te. Sei tu. Ma tu sei mia madre e il tuo amore è la mia schiavitù. Ho passato l'infanzia schiavo di questo senso alto, irrimediabile, di un impegno immenso. Era l'unico modo per sentire la vita, l'unica tinta, l'unica forma. Ora è finita. Sopravviviamo. È dalla confusione di una vita rinata fuori dalla ragione. Ti supplico, non voler morire. Sono qui, solo con te, in un futuro aprile.
I was born in a city of porticos in 1922. Thus I'm 44, and I wear it well. Just yesterday, in a grove where hookers plied their trade, some soldiers thought I was 24. Poor boys, they mistook a child for a coeval. My father died in 1959. My mother is still alive. Every time I think about my brother Guido, I cry. A partisan killed by other partisans, communists. He joined the Action Party based on my advice. He first joined the resistance as a communist. On those accursed mountains along a deforested border, amidst tiny grey hills and the disconsolate Prealps. As for poetry, I began at age 7. No precautionlessness on my part, except willpower. I was a 7-year-old poet, like Rimbaud, but only when it came to life. Now, in a village caught between the mountains and the sea, where great storms break out and winters are rain-sodden, in February you can see the mountains clear as glass through the bare branches, where odorless prime roses bloom in ditches, and in summer little plots of maize interspersed with gloomy green alfalfa are sketched against a nascent sky, like a mysteriously oriental landscape. Now in that village, there is a chest filled with manuscripts of one of many child poets. I fled to Rome with my mother and a suitcase and a bit of jewelry that turned out to be fake, on a train as slow as a freight train, across a Friulian plain covered by a light, hard layer of snow. We were heading to Rome. We had thus abandoned my father next to a wretched wood-burning stove with his old army greatcoat and the terrible rages of a man sick with cirrhosis and paranoia. I lived through a page in a novel, the only one in my life. The rest of the time, I lived in a lyric. What else? Like all lunatics. The most important thing in my life has been my mother. Joining her now is Ninetto.
Ma che elegant!
Yes, very elegant. Don't you think so?
I thought you were a poet, not a lunatic.
You need a lot of time to be a poet.
You need a lot less time, I assure you, to make me think you're a lunatic.
But they have fabulous taste. Look at how they're dressed. In the most sincere, non-conformist way possible. They couldn't care less about petite bourgeois or working class rules. Those loud sweaters, cheap jackets, and incredible colors. Young people here don't put on clothes. They put on a costume. And in a costume, they run around proud, conscious of their elegance, which is never a mythical or naive elegance. It makes you feel like imitating them.
Would you like to go shopping?
Would you come with me?
I thought you wanted to talk about politics.
Oh, not tonight.
As you like.
Where could I dress like this? In Rome? I'm always afraid of people turning around to stare at me.
In a store in the village, he went crazy for a shirt that was the exact copy of the ones worn in Sing Sing. State prison, convict number 3678. That's what it said on its left pocket. He bought it for Ninetto. Ninetto Davoli, his favorite actor and close companion.
Adorable. He will love it.
Then, outside on the street, we noticed a demonstration in favor of the Vietnam War. Men and women with glum faces were holding handwritten signs that said, Bamba Noi. He took it very badly. For a week, he'd been feverishly explaining to me that the true revolutionary movement on earth was not in China, it's not in Russia, it was here in America.
Go to Moscow, go to Prague, go to Budapest, and you see that the sense of the revolution has failed. Socialism has placed in power a ruling class, and the working man is no longer the master of his destiny. Go to France or Italy, and do you realize that the European communist is an empty man? Come to America, and you discover the most beautiful left wing that a Marxist today can find. The revolutionaries here remind me of the first Christian. There is something of the same absolutism of Christ.
Non popolo arabo, non popolo balcanico, non popolo antico, ma nazione vivente, ma nazione europea. E cosa sei? Terra di infanti, affamati, corrotti, governanti, impiegati di agrari, prefetti codini, avvocatucci unti di brillantina ai piedi sporchi, funzionari liberali, carogne come gli zii bigotti, una caserma, un seminario, una spiaggia libera, un casino. Milioni di piccoli borghesi come milioni di porci pascolano sospingendosi come sotto gli illesi palazzotti, tra case coloniali scrostate oramai come chiese. Proprio perché tu sei esistita, ora non esisti. Proprio perché fosti cosciente, ora sei incosciente. E solo perché sei cattolica, non puoi pensare che il tuo male è tutto il male, colpa di ogni male. Sprofonda in questo tuo bel mare, libera il mondo.
How did I become a Marxist? Well, I used to go walking in spring through white and pale blue flowers. The ones that bloom right after the primroses, and just before the acacias fill up with blossoms as fragrant as human flesh decomposing in the sublime heat of the loveliest season. I would write on the banks of the little ponds, which down there in my mother's village are called by one of those untranslatable names, fonde, in the company of boys, sons of peasants, who would innocently swim, because they were stoic about life, whereas I believed they were conscious of what they were. I was writing the poems of the Nightingale of the Catholic Church. This was in 1943. By 1945, everything had changed. Those peasants' sons, having grown a little older, tied red bandanas around their necks and marched into the center of town with his Venetian and doors and buildings. This is how I learned there were farmhands, which meant they worked for landowners. I took the side of the laborers and read Marx. Great is your spiritualism, America, but it will be even greater the day its innocence has been debunked. I love Ginsberg. It had been so long since I read poetry by a brother poet, not since the time, I think in the village of storms and primroses, when I read Tomaseo's Greek songs and Machado. No artist anywhere is free. He is a living protest. In Rome, from 1950 until now, August 1966, I've done nothing but suffer and work insatiably. After a year of unemployment, when my life ground to a halt, I began teaching at a small private school for 27,000 liras a month. Meanwhile, my father had joined us, and we never spoke of our flight, mine and of my mother's. It was a normal occurrence, a relocation in 2 stages. We lived in a house with no roof or plaster, a poor people's house in the outer suburbs near a prison. There was dust up on high in the summer, a swamp in winter. But it was Italy. Italy stripped naked, with its boys, its women, its scents of jasmine and humble soups, its sunsets over the fields of the Aniene River, its heaps of garbage, and for me, my unbroken dreams of poetry. In poetry, everything had a solution. It felt as though Italy, its history and destiny, depended on what I wrote about it. The Italian bourgeoisie too can be racist. It hadn't had the chance yet, but at the first slightest opportunity, my novels, it was unleashed. I experienced what a black man in Chicago might experience, but I quickly forgot. It became but one single thing, above me and in me, one special thing, that thing. And so I tucked it away and suffered in my gut. An ulcer opened up inside me, from which I shall surely die sooner or later. The Italian bourgeoisie around me is a band of assassins. Of course, I certainly don't expect a better welcome from the American bourgeoisie. In the world of capital, life is a wager to be won or lost. This is the human condition of bourgeois secularism. Whoever shows his hand or confesses, or doesn't fear ridicule, comes to a bad end. It's the law.
Shall we? Dai, andiamo! At 7 o'clock, we had an appointment with Herbert Blau, director of the Lincoln Center Repertory Theater. We invited him for dinner. You couldn't find a taxi at that hour, so we walked there. There was a drizzling, exasperating rain. Where are you going? Pier Paolo, come here under the umbrella! But he didn't seem to feel it. He might have even liked it. That sadness swollen with 1,000 griefs had almost disappeared from his eyes.
You know, Oriana, the most important thing of this city is misery.
Only Pasolini can see misery in New York at first glance.
I don't mean an economic misery, the misery of those with nothing to eat, but a psychological misery. The dirt everywhere, the fleeting nature of everything. The streets paved so badly that when it rains, they fill with puddles. The black or brown walls put up quickly to be turned down just as quickly. And never a nicely polished corner destined to last.
Ma va, in Park Avenue? Or the skyscrapers?
The skyscrapers, they're like the pyramids.
What?
Being here today is like finding yourself in Egypt when the slaves were building the pyramids.
Oh my God, what are you talking about?
You know, who's to say that the Egyptians, slaves, lived so badly? Maybe they were cheerful in their despair and they went out drinking at night. It's irrelevant. The important thing is this post-colonial misery of the working class.
Oh my God, the working class doesn't exist here, Pier Paolo.
It does exist.
Come here, you'll ruin your coat.
Everyone bears the same working class stigmata. At a quick glance, you can hardly see the class differences. Like in Moscow, where you walk around thinking everyone's the same. The difference is there, of course, but they don't realize it. We don't realize it. Do you know why? Because they don't have class consciousness.
Is this good or bad?
I don't know. I'm confused.
Me too.
Mi domando che madre avete avuto. Se ora vi vedessero al lavoro, in un mondo a loro sconosciuto, presi in un giro mai compiuto, d'esperienze così diverse dalle loro, che sguardo avrebbero negli occhi? Se fossero lì, mentre voi scrivete il vostro pezzo, conformisti e barocchi, o lo passate ai redattori rotti a ogni compromesso, capirebbero chi siete. Madri vili, con nel viso il timore antico, quello che come un male deforma i lineamenti in un biancore che li annebbia, che li allontana dal cuore, che li chiude nel vecchio rifiuto morale. Madri vili, poverine, preoccupate che i figli conoscano la viltà per chiedere un posto, per essere pratici, per non offendere anime privilegiate, per difendersi da ogni pietà. Madri mediocri, che hanno imparato con umiltà di bambine di noi un unico nudo significato, con anime in cui il mondo è dannato a non dare né dolore né gioia. Madri mediocri, che non hanno avuto per voi mai una parola d'amore, se non d'un amore sordidamente muto di bestia, e in esso m'hanno cresciuto impotenti ai reali richiami del cuore. Madri servili, abituate da secoli a chinare senza amore la testa, a trasmettere al loro feto l'antico, vergognoso segreto di accontentarsi dei resti della festa. Madri servili, che vi hanno insegnato come il servo può essere felice, odiando chi è come lui, legato, come può essere tradendo beato e sicuro, facendo ciò che non dice. Madri feroci, intente a difendere quel poco che borghesi possiedono, la normalità e lo stipendio, quasi con rabbia di chi si vendichi o sia stretto da uno studio assedio. Madri feroci che vi hanno detto: sopravvivete! Pensate solo a voi! Non provate mai pietà o rispetto per nessuno, covate nel petto la vostra integrità di avvoltoi. Ecco, vili, mediocri, servi, feroci, le vostre povere madri, che non hanno vergogna a sapervi nel vostro odio addirittura superbi, se non è questa che è una valle di lacrime. È così che vi appartiene questo mondo. Fatti fratelli nelle opposte passioni, o le patrie nemiche, dal rifiuto profondo esseri diversi, a rispondere del selvaggio dolore di essere uomini.
Enough joking about myself. One gets nowhere that way. There's not much to laugh about anyway. It's hardly fitting. This humorous bent after 40 years, but it's inevitable, and all because as a baby, I wasn't abandoned in the desert by my parents. Father, mother, why didn't you reserve for me the fate normally reserved for orphans? I smelled the fragrance of the grassless veil. And since I was never to become a priest, a blackmailer shouting as revelations the notions commonly accepted in this village, I do not see stones and boulders as enigmas. I see the real stones of the hills of Asia, for example. In any case, it's because I was not an orphan, as I should have been, that I'm now learning to smile at myself. Which heroes never do, but influential people do.
The restaurant where we met Herbert Blau was famous for its grilled lobster.
Just a fruit salad without oranges for me, and a glass of milk.
I never saw him drunk.
I'm suffering from an ulcer. I should have an operation.
While talking about plays and project, Blau stared at him, dumbfounded. This revolutionary eats like a baby. They say goodnight to each other pretty quickly, mutually bored.
The world belongs to the good, but the idiots get to enjoy it.
Then let me take you somewhere special tonight.
No. I know where you want to take me. I'd rather not.
Come on, why not? It's like climbing to the top of a mountain. The breeze is clean up there.
Ah, detto di no, thank you.
It's the Empire State Building, Pier Paolo. Let's be idiots tonight.
I'm not interested in clean breeze. Thanks.
It's true. I read it on his face. He didn't care at all. In his world, there was no room for such wonders. Just as there was no room for the glass skyscrapers of Park Avenue, a rocket liftoff, or a heart transplant. The nice, clean, comfortable America adored by the believers in paradise. Like Rimbaud or certain martyrs, he always wanted to return to hell.
Sesso, consolazione della miseria. La puttana è una regina, il suo trono è un rudere, la sua terra è un pezzo di merdoso prato, il suo scettro una borsetta di vernice rossa. Abbaia nella notte, sporca e feroce come un'antica madre. Difende il suo possesso e la sua vita. I magnaccia, attorno a frotte, gonfi e sbattuti con i loro baffi, brindisi o slavi, sono capi, reggenti. Combinano nel buio i loro affari di 100 lire, ammiccando in silenzio, scambiandosi parole d'ordine. Il mondo, escluso, tace intorno a loro, che se ne sono esclusi, silenziose carogne di rapaci. Ma nei rifiuti del mondo nasce un nuovo mondo. Nascono leggi nuove dove non c'è più legge. Nasce un nuovo onore dove onore è il disonore. Nascono potenze e nobiltà, feroci nei mucchi di tuguri, nei luoghi sconfinati dove credi che la città finisca e dove invece ricomincia, nemica, ricomincia per migliaia di volte con ponti e labirinti, cantieri e sterri, dietro mareggiate di grattacieli che coprono interi nuovi orizzonti. Nella facilità dell'amore, il miserabile si sente uomo. Fonda la fiducia nella vita, fino a disprezzare chi ha altra vita. I figli si gettano all'avventura sicuri di essere in un mondo che di loro, del loro sesso, ha paura. La loro pietà è nell'essere spietati, la loro forza nella leggerezza, la loro speranza nel non avere speranza.
My youth has lasted too long. The mayor of San Sepolcro writes me, Herr Professor Communist, that I am a hope. No, I am not a hope. I am a reality gone beyond itself, turned toward itself like a monster. I see it come to the surface these days that I'm with the young people, only then. Days of destructions of every life, stupendous as every destruction, because only at the end there is hope. There is something, since everything ends up with being only something in us who are flesh and imagination. That's a rational idea of the world. I live by it. I will live by it. This something is the extension of my life. But this something floats upon another something. That something that came only from my adolescence. A triumphant sense of death, of a terrific aesthetic uselessness. I was scared of it then. It was delicate to touch it because it was everything. And then, since it was only aesthetic, it had only beauty to exist for. A single instant of ugliness would have twisted it frightfully. Now I can allow myself less exquisite mystery. Like a good gravy, a serious aestheticism toward death can season the truth. Avalon, I think, he was so insistent.
Wait, Avedon, you mean? Dick Avedon?
Yes, something like that.
Don't you know who Dick Avedon is?
No, who is he?
Maybe the greatest photographer alive in America and one of the greatest in the world?
Really?
Avedon asked him to go to his studio at around 11, but he got there late because on 45th Street there was a vagabond drunk since dawn. And a drunk vagabond was worth way more than 100 photos by Avedon.
He had a package in his hands, he was staring at it, and then he threw it away with such violence that the package broke. Who knows what was in it? After that, he leaned against the wall, he put his head on his forearm, he slid slowly to the ground, and remained there, crying, indeed dying. No one stopped to look at him, to help him. I didn't either. But is that bad? Or maybe it's bad as stopping and looking at him. Maybe our silence is not a lack of pity. Perhaps it's a superior form of pity. The pity of not approaching, not snooping. You know, of letting others die.
What a scene. While Avedon was taking pictures for the frivolous readers of Vogue, all he was thinking about was his next ferocious editorial.
I know.
I know the names of those responsible for what has been called a coup d'etat, but in reality, it's a series of coups instituted for the preservation of power.
I know the names of those responsible for the Milan massacre of 1969.
I know the names of those responsible for the Brescia and the Bologna massacre of 1974.
I know the names of the leadership that manipulated both the old fascists who devised the coup and the neo-fascists who materially executed the early massacres, as well as the unknown perpetrators of the most recent massacres.
I know the names of the powerful figures who, with the help of the CIA, first created an anti-communist crusade, which failed miserably in order to plug the dam of '68.
I know the names of those who, in between holy masses, provided and ensured political protection to the old generals, young neo-fascists, or rather neo-Nazis, and finally common criminals, who until now have been nameless and possibly shall be forever.
I know the names of the sober and important people who lurk behind comical characters.
I know the names of the sober and important people who lurk behind the tragic youths who chose the suicidal fascist atrocities.
I know all the names, and I know all the facts. Attempts against the institutions and massacres. for which they have been responsible.
I know, but I don't have any evidence.
I don't even have clues.
I know because I'm an intellectual, a writer who tries to follow everything that happens, to imagine everything that is unknown or unspoken.
Who connects facts that may seem unrelated, but puts together the disorganized and fragmentary pieces of an entire coherent political picture, who restores logic where arbitrariness, stupidity, and mystery seem to rule.
In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
And then it was time for him to leave.
I have to come back. I have to live here, even if I'm not 20 anymore. Really hate to leave. I feel robbed. I feel like a child in front of a big layer cake who doesn't know which layer he wants the most. Only that he wants to eat them all, one by one. And just when he's about to take a bite, they take the cake away.
He didn't see New York again. He didn't have the time. I saw him though. The first time in Brazil, fate brought us together again. He was there on holiday with Maria Callas. The newspapers wrote that they were lovers. Then, every time I was in Rome, I looked for him. We often went to dinner, and eating with him was always a party, because you could never get bored eating with Pasolini.
Let's go to the restaurant. They do wonderful mozzarella.
Okay, dai, andiamo. Leaving him after dinner, though, was torture. Because we knew where he was going every time. And every time it was like seeing him run to an appointment with death. Every time I wanted to grab him by the jacket, restrain him, beg him, tell him again what I already told him in New York. They will slit your throat, Pier Paolo.
Huh? Really?
Yes, really.
Death is not about not being able to communicate again. It's about not being understood anymore.
I wanted to yell at him that he didn't have the right, because his life didn't just belong to him, to his thirst for salvation alone. It belonged to all of us. And we needed it. There was no one else in Italy capable of revealing the truth as he used to reveal it. Capable of making us think like he did, of educating our social awareness. And I hated him when he drove away in that car. That same one the three thugs would crush his art with. I cursed him. But then my hatred turned into this crazy admiration, and I praised his courage, his independence.
My independence, that is my strength, implies loneliness. That is my weakness.
I was in Rome that Sunday morning too, hoping to see him appear for a drink at Piazza Navona. But instead, his picture appeared on the television set inside an empty bar. Someone announced the official headline of the news. Even the two farmers appeared. You know, the two who had discovered his body. They said that from a distance, it didn't even seem like a body that had been slaughtered so badly. They said it looked like a pile of trash. And only when they had looked closely, they understood that it was not trash, that it was a man.
It was me.
Pier Paolo, will you forgive me if I say that you weren't a man? If I say that you were a light, and that someday a light went out?